Okay. Now, this is about hot and cold, and cold and hot. And I'm finding this interesting today specifically because I had conversations over the weekend with someone who identifies as I fucking Italian. And I'm so whatever, Irish. I fill in the blank, Rish. Okay. And there's just a lot of things that I grew up with that I find funny and very stereotypical. Yeah, sure. Okay, we could say it. We'll just get it right out there. The six pack and the potato, the drunken Irishman thing. Yeah, alcoholism is widespread in my family. We're all a little bit off when it comes to the drink. Okay, but beyond that, as a stereotype, there's definitely, and what I want to talk about here isn't necessarily cultural bias or stereotypes, but more so kind of like these general energies that it's kind of like talking about astrology, right? Like it's not rules, it's not law, it doesn't have a science to it, but you can sometimes find similarities within a comparison between Cancer and Aquarius. So we're just going to do that as far as energies, right? So when something comes up, I would call myself stoic, I'd call myself detached. There are people who would call me cold, all right? Now, you may find that funny, but it's probably somewhat to mostly accurate. Only because if someone's getting highly emotional around me, I can remain neutral. So I prefer the word neutral to cold, which sounds negative, or stoic, which sounds hard. Okay, so we're just gonna say I'm neutral. Like, in other words, somebody could be like tornadoing like a crazy MF around me, and I can literally sit there and be calm and disengage. Yeah, there will be things that happen and things they say that maybe make me tense or nervous or uncomfortable, but I can sit through it. I have other people that I know that are like, and generally speaking, again, higher energies, more emotion tends to come out of my friends who are Black or Italian. All right. And with that, and I've even heard them profess to that, like very, very, especially Italian people, like I'm highly emotional, and it's kind of like you're either my friend or my enemy, like very extremes of like passion and love, and then detestation and hate, right? And then I heard this guy, this Black guy on the news once, and he was like, we're conducting an investigation of a police officer. Something was happening. It was a racial incident. And he said, please be patient. We Black and brown people, we're highly emotional people. And I thought, oh, well, I never really thought about that, but I would agree with that. I mean, just in general and especially in comparison to the way that like I behave and to the way people that raised me, who happen to be Irish from Ireland, raised me. Very stoic, very disengaged from emotional expression, hugging, touching, stuff like that. Now, here's the bottom line. It's not about discriminating what's better or worse. It's about scenarios and it's about energy. Because I'll tell you what, in a conflict situation, I'd rather be the stoic, cold, neutral Irish person, because if someone's coming at me highly emotional and I meet them with highly emotional, it's going to turn into a shit show very quickly. But if I can remain neutral or stoic, they're able to pour themselves out on me, and it will more often diffuse things. That's what's made me a good like member services person, or the person that people got in my professional career when they wanted to speak to the manager, right? Like I was a good person because people could pour out their frustration and I could depersonalize it. Now, on the other hand, in matters of love and emotion and connection, my stoicism, which appears cold, can be very not neutral and appear, again, like cold or too detached. Because when someone's pouring out love or emotion of a positive kind, I don't necessarily respond with that very like, oh, I'm so in love, and oh, I feel so strongly, and this is exactly the way I feel. Like that kind of sometimes hyper emotionalism, especially around romanticism, is sort of like too fluffy for me. I'm the type of person, like, if I love you, I'm going to show up. If I love you, I'm going to send you a card. If I love you, I'm going to meet with you. If I love you, I'm going to have sex with you. If I love you, I'm going to give you my time, right? So these ways that we have different energies are good in some ways, not good in another. Like generally speaking, I'm involved in some community groups. When I lived in Brooklyn, and I was involved in community groups where I was surrounded by more ethnic people, and in my case where I live, more Black Caribbean people, the community groups were louder and more vibrant. And so if I was in something that was like a religious or spiritual community, I was uplifted and enthralled, and I felt the vibe and I felt very strongly. But if there was a conflict situation, I wasn't, like that made me a little bit more uncomfortable, because the energy, even though it's the same energy, had different circumstances, right? So it's all about circumstances. A lot of it it is about cultural bias. And also, it's all about the fact that, like, we do have different energies. And it's not like, I don't believe that we're going to come to this place where we're all just going to be like one kind of race who expresses ourselves in the same way because we all know how to act in every situation. I've actually come to learn to really appreciate and love and respect my more emotional friends, like my Italian friends and my Black friends and everything, sometimes more than my too stoic or cold Irish friends. But then in other situations, the stoicism, the Irish way that I have in me is more familiar and more comfortable, right? So this is a journey. It's a journey of discovery. Sometimes it's bias, sometimes it's just experience. I'm trying to fit it all together like a nice, a bigger meatball. You know what I'm saying? And just try to make sense of it. But the hot, cold energy thing is just a really interesting thing for me to ponder, thing for me to look at as I am trying to adapt and figure out what in me is going to find the greatest expression of love to the most amount of people. So anyway, hope you got something out of that today. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day.